Welcome once again into our freight conversation, where each conversation is intertwined with the last and also connected to the next one as well. I'm Bill Priestley, and joining us today is Sherri Brumbaugh, the president of Garner Transportation Group. Sherri, thanks so much for joining us.
Great to be here.
All right. So last week we had a very interesting conversation on gender diversity with Harris Ligon, the CEO of Telegraph, and then he decided to put up this question for the next guest.
Why are you so scared of the really tough and hard to solve industries? Why does technology tend to stay away from barges, construction, manufacturing, farming? Why are people afraid to innovate in those areas? What's the holdup, right? Those manufacturing jobs, those heavy industry jobs, those areas of the Midwest and the Dakotas and the plains that have a ton of amazing people doing amazing work that we all rely on to eat and sleep and do a lot of different things. Why is innovation slow to get to those areas? That's my question.
So it's an interesting thesis, if you will. Just on face value, let me just open it up to you. What did you think when you first heard the question?
Well, it is an interesting topic, technology in the trucking industry and innovation, and I can speak to that mode of transportation and trucking specifically, truckload. I am a truckload carrier. I have about 100 trucks here, nestled in Northwest Ohio. So we are the Midwest. We are the heart, Ohio, the heart of the country for sure, but a crossroads with a lot of manufacturing and a lot of truck traffic. And we also, where I'm nestled in the part of the country, we have also, shipping, we have air as well, so and rail. So we have it all here, all modes. But as far as the innovation in the Midwest, I don't feel I'm being left behind. I feel like I'm constantly trying to strive for better technology, not only in my own trucks, and we can talk about that a little bit, but what kind of technology my customers requiring of us. I do certainly appreciate. I read a bit about his business, and they're providing a solution of the communication with their customers, and I absolutely do have people completing 7, 8, 9, websites of shipping, up to date, arrive, depart, how much did it weigh, and all those things. So there is a efficiency issue for sure. I can speak to that. It's just that our industry, our mode of transportation, I feel the issue could be that we're so broad. I mean, there are so many players. I mean, you look at the rail industry, there are 7 major players basically. You've got Norfolk Southern, BNSF, though there's 7 compared to the trucking industry, where we have 3.5 million trucks operating across our country. So I can see that there's a challenge to collect a lot of data from a lot of different people.
Sure. Absolutely. One of the things is, and I kind of want to get rid of this. Maybe it's a presupposition, just kind of at the very beginning. And of course, Harris this is based in Chicago, so he's Midwestern based. So it's not as though he's picking on the Midwest.
Right.
He's picking on himself. But I am from I wouldn't say the rural South, but I've been a Southerner most of my life, and I've lived in Indianapolis for a year and a half, so I can count that as my one connection to the Midwest as terms of being familiar with the area. But as he brought up that idea of the Midwest, kind of the harder jobs, the kind of the industrialized revolution idea of those jobs that have come about, it reminded me a little bit of when I was in school and I read a book on Reconstruction, Civil War Reconstruction. And the author of the book was from New York State. And in 3 times in the book, he referred to the South as, quote unquote, backwards, which I took offense to slightly. I
Mhm.
mean, it was all well, and obviously you were talking about an agrarian society versus a technological one at that particular time. But with regards to, is there any truth to the idea of this sort of the hard backbone of American worker, the Midwesterner, in terms of the work that they do? Is there any truth to an idea that there's that kind of regionalism that needs to be talked about?
Well, I think we are all hardworking Americans for sure, but
Sure.
there's a difference in that the rural where, you know, going to your place of work and working with your hands, is also there's a lot to be said to that. I mean, for Ohio, the number one industry is farming still,
Hmm.
and so that's working with your hands and your back for sure. I look at truckers and farmers, we're kind of like peas and carrots. We kind of go, if it's raining, we're complaining that it's raining. If it's not raining, we're complaining that it's not raining. And it's so and freight kind of works that way too. I don't have enough freight, or I have too much freight. It's this ebb and flow. But as far as the work ethic, uh, we all work hard, and it's just in different ways, and we just have
Yeah.
to appreciate each other for how we get our work done.
That's kind of exactly as I would expect you to answer that kind of inquiry there as well. In terms of his bigger question as to technology and how it impacts the rural areas of the country, let's just put it that way
Yeah.
instead of simply calling it the Midwest. What do you see is that what is there that's factual? What is there is the thesis reasonably correct that that rural areas have somewhat been neglected as far as technology is concerned, whereas we see like drones and last mile delivery and all of this stuff is being pushed really hard in terms of developments technologically that can make those things happen a whole lot quicker and a whole lot more efficiently.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there is truth, and I think it came glaringly apparent to us during the pandemic when our kiddos went home to school, and they had to rely on, the internet to get to their studies and get to their teachers. And there was just this terrible gap because our rural students didn't have that Wi-Fi infrastructure, internet infrastructure to get them connected. So there absolutely is truth to that when it comes to bandwidth, when it comes to connectivity, and so that it provides a disadvantage. Now, there's availability to it, but economies of scale. I mean, it's like how much do you want to pay to get to that? And uh, I'll give you a really good example, and it just was kind of timely over the weekend. We had on Saturday, we met with our drivers advisory board here at Garner, and we have 6 or 8 or so those drivers that are in our fleet that we ask them to say, what's going on, what can we make better, what's going well, those kinds of questions. And it came up Wi-Fi. We'd like Wi-Fi in our trucks, and we have looked into that. But to do it is very, very costly. Just to get 1 gig for my trucks, and it costs annually over $20,000 just for a gig, and it just incrementally goes up from there. So
Hmm.
we struggle, I think, not only with that piece of it, but also our roads and bridges infrastructure, which is a whole nother conversation. But getting, you know, getting to that last mile can be challenging for a truck.
Well, let's go ahead and go down that road. We're talking about roads and bridges. Obviously, we're looking at American infrastructure that has not is in need of repair.
Right.
Let's put it that way. Um, does that is that part of it? In other words, is that the impetus? Whereas it's just it's not sexy.
Right.
But is that the reason why it's being neglected?
Well, that, and it commands a lot of dollars to fix.
Hmm.
So we're getting taxed as Americans. That's going to our roads and bridges, our states are trying to take care of roads and bridges, our counties, our communities, each of our communities are. It's just a very expensive. Asphalt is expensive. So, uh, it's sometimes, and it isn't sexy. Who wants to put money into, I've got a parking lot out here that needs repaired, and man, the hundreds of $1,000s to put in that, I was like, oh, I could put that in a wage, right? So, that's the I think a challenge for us in the rural area too. It weighs on a driver's time. They get caught up in traffic, and so it makes for inefficiencies.
Yeah, definitely there. Um, One of the other things that Harris brought up with, or actually a number of other things he brought up with, was just other industries, barges, manufacturing. You mentioned farming there as well. Is that the same issue? Is it just not attractive, and also it costs a lot of money for that kind of technology to make a significant bump into those areas?
Yeah, I think so. Farming is it's pretty cool what they're doing with farming. I mean, a farmer can take his equipment into the field and GPS it now, and the tractor just goes. That's pretty cool stuff. And just think of the fatigue factor on a farmer that it takes away. So that there's just so much to choose from. I'll provide another example. I just came from the Truckload Carriers Association annual meeting in Orlando, and they have a wonderful trade show exhibit hall with full of all this technology for the trucking industry and for my peers to look at. And it's like, what's the right one? And for instance, in 2019, we were mandated by the federal government to have electronic logs. I am a proponent. We've had it way long before it was mandated. In 2000, we implemented it. And but if you walked into that trade show at TCA, I mean, there were just so many choices. What's the right one? You have to evaluate that for your own organization. There's a lot of folks that come to visit us here at Garner, and they're walking the halls, and they see computers on our desks, and I've got big screens with data, displaying data all day long, and they're wow, there's a lot of technology in trucks. Yes, there is. So uh, I think that's probably one of the challenges with our shipping community because each of us have so many different things.
Well, then let me go back because you bring up an interesting point because we had a conversation with Ellen Voy about if she were Pete Buttigieg for a day,
Yeah.
and she had control of millions of dollars that she could distribute as she wanted to. So, if you had a large bank account,
Mhm.
and I mean unbelievably large,
Yeah.
uh, and you wanted to put some of that, where is the right place to put it? Let's start trucking,
Yeah.
and then maybe to some of these other areas that Harris has alluded to that may be needed of a in need of a technological boost.
Yeah. Well, there certainly would be some transparency in our capacity that we have available in the trucking
Hmm.
industry. That would be, I think, very helpful for both sides of the house. And truck parking is, and it's on his radar, but I think they're, and it's kind of one of my bare bullish points at the end, but
Yeah.
I'll get to it. I mean, um, I feel they are putting that whole burden on the trucking industry. It should be the burden of the shipping committee community as well. You look at if you drive on route state or interstate I-70 east and west, and you go through, you know, Columbus, Indianapolis, St. Louis, you go through all those big cities. There's just lots of warehouses being built, like large warehouse, 100 dock door warehouses, and they have these little weedy enough parking maybe for about 50 trucks. So at best, and if our all of our economic development folks that help, if there is a common communication between our development, that the requirement would be not, if you're going to build a 100 dock door, you need to build a 300 parking, because not only do you have a truck coming in to get a trailer, you have a trailer still there, and they're going to drop a trailer. So, there's lots of moving parts. So, um, it's a thankless job. I mean, a tough job for Secretary Buttigieg to please a lot of people, and you're not going to make everybody happy. But if I were him, I would try to engage the shipping community into helping solving the truck parking problem.
Gotcha there. One of the areas that he brought up, and I don't know how well you can speak to this, but actually, I've, in my years at FreightWaves, we've never even really talked about it that much at all, other than the fact that when the Mississippi River was at a point where barges could only go in one direction at certain points because it was so low. But barging is a trade that has, at least at face value, doesn't seem to have changed at all in 150 years. Any ideas there?
Well, I visited. Yeah, we have the Ohio River.
Okay.
Lots of cargo
Yeah.
up and down the Ohio River.
My father grew up on the Mississippi River about an hour south of Memphis, so it's a culture I'm aware of,
Right.
but not to that extent.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like making a 4-lane highway to 6 lanes. You've
Yeah.
got to do a lot of um, destruction before you can do construction, especially if maybe trying to, you look like if you go down I-77 and there's mountains. It
Yeah.
takes a lot to move a mountain. So,
Sure.
I that increasing the capacity, there's just only so much. There's only so many barges you could potentially have on any particular waterway. But
Yeah.
certainly there's probably a way to improve.
Yeah, you'd think in all these years we could have something maybe that looks slightly more innovative than again another tugboat pushing a barge
Right,
down or up river.
right.
Um, Let me switch back to the kind of the if you had a bunch of money at your disposal, just from a technological standpoint, not so much maybe a practical standpoint when you talk about truck parking. Um, what needs to be improved in your mind in terms of the ability? Obviously, transparency, as you mentioned, is something that's huge across trucking, certainly.
Hmm.
But anything that you think that needs to really be addressed, that technology can play a part in solving, or rather, advancing, if not solving.
Right. Well, I look at truck safety. That's my mode. Trucking, that's what I
Sure.
know. But I look at truck safety, and you look at the environment as well. There's opportunity to have our trucks are pretty clean right now, but
Hmm.
across all my peers, there's it costs to replace equipment for safer equipment, and that's what that's what I do at Garner. I mean, that's important to me, but it takes a lot of capital to replace older equipment. So right now we have an FET tax that goes on our trucks for every piece of equipment, every truck we buy, every trailer we buy. There's this tax that's a burden on the industry. If the government didn't need that tax, I'd wipe that away, right? That would certainly help, the industry. And there's legislation being proposed to try to, but it's like, okay, that's a big cookie in the cookie jar. So there's a lot of hands
Right.
in the cookie jar. You got to replace that cookie somehow. So we've got to find a replacement for that. And as we get more fuel efficient, more electric cars, uh, again, that that other cookie needs to be replaced. But if anything, I would uh, give money to our industry to uh, invest in safety equipment in our trucks, because right now a good portion of it is optional. FMCSA, their goal is to have zero fatal accidents, which is a great. I want to have zero fatal accidents. I don't. Um, it is, to have a truck involved in a fatal accident or any kind of crash is, certainly detrimental to the individuals that are involved in that. So, there's good safety equipment investments, and if we were encouraged or helped, it wouldn't, it would get us there faster.
So as you look at technology and kind of look at this from the reverse side of the coin, in terms of in trucking in your mode, where do you see? Obviously, there are areas where technology clearly the gear is turning. Like you're talking about electric cars. We're talking about automation. We're talking about all these other things that are kind of we're hearing a lot of headlines day in and day out about this kind of thing. Uh, and then there are areas where the gears aren't turning as much. What do you see as being kind of where's the money being spent that draws your eye? In other words, uh, is it electricity, or is it alternative fuels? Is it um, what do you think is driving the change in trucking right now from a technological
Yeah.
standpoint?
There's a lot of, the driverless trucks, so or
Mm-hmm.
driver assisted trucks. So there's a lot of emphasis there. There's a lot of there's some good innovation going on with that. I think at this point there won't be any driverless trucks anytime soon in my lifetime, but driver assist, helping a driver, manage. We really have to work on our infrastructure to get driverless trucks because it really relies on a good infrastructure in order to have that vehicle drive with any automation. So there's a significant amount of innovation going in with that regard. Also, battery operated trucks. Right now, they're very, 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 very expensive for an individual like myself, like my company. But there there's certainly some advancements in that regard as well. So we could move to a battery, like, there are solutions right now. But it's kind of in the municipality where the truck's out and back. It's not practical for mine right now. I think right now the longest length of haul you can get on a battery operated Class 8 vehicle is about 260 miles. Well, my average length of haul is 350. So the infrastructure just isn't there. So, I, we've got to get it's like you have to, does the egg become, egg before the chicken, chicken before the egg. I think that's where we failed with nat gas trucks. With several years we had natural gas trucks. And I had a few of them in my fleet. I wanted, let's give them a try. And the infrastructure just wasn't there for them to fuel. Same things now we're repeating ourselves again with battery operated trucks.
Gotcha. Do you think, and feel free to dodge this question completely if you want to, do you think any of that interest in moving these in these areas where you're talking about is misplaced?
I do. And I look at our OEMs, our manufacturings that are, we should be buying these, and I'll buy them, but it's got to be practical. I still have freight to deliver. I still have customers that are in demand of their freight arriving on time, and the infrastructure is just not there for me to participate in it right now. Now, is there an app? Do I never say no? I mean, is there an application where I have a day freight where I could have someone out and back? I do have that, but the cost of those vehicles are still out of my range to even begin to invest in them.
Gotcha. Well, let me ask you this then. We come to the end of our conversation. What are you most bearish about, and what are you most bullish about when it comes to technology and improving the lives of those in the freight industry?
Well, my, my, I guess my last hurrah, or my last, I'm, uh, trying to continue to influence the industry with whatever I can from my seat here in a little Midwest Ohio. But it's, when it comes to truck driver shortage, we still have a shortage. I this is an aging workforce, and we've got to replace it. So I'm not abashed to say I believe in younger drivers. An 18-year-old can drive a truck responsibly if they have the right training, the right hours in the seat with a mentor, driver trainer, and have the safety equipment on their vehicles. I think the younger generation embraces technology. They love all that stuff. So the more technology that we have in the truck, I think they'll embrace it. So it's much better. And what I would say with our industry and what I'm bullish about now is just think of all the individuals that come into our industry and have a terrible experience, whether it's held up at the dock, can't find a parking place at the end of the day when they're tired. They get their loads changed at the last minute or something like that. That how many individuals come into our industry every day and have a bad experience and leave and never come back? That's on us. That's my customers, that's my shippers helping me make sure that that truck driver has a good experience and that they have facilities for restrooms. They don't need showers and snack, a nice snack machine's fine. They don't need a bed to lay on, but they need to be in and out. You want them in and out. We want them in and out as too. But just think of all those individuals that have bad experience. They leave and they never come back. And how many people do they tell they had a bad experience in the trucking industry? So it's incumbent upon us to, uh, my peers, my customers, those people that I align with, that we make sure these individuals have good experiences and have a career.
Absolutely. You make great points there as well. All right, Sherri Gardner Brumbaugh, it is time for you to direct the conversation somewhere else. Let's say, for instance, that you're in an arena, you have the ear of everyone in the freight industry, you're at the podium. Where would you like to see the conversation go from here?
Well, I spoke to it a bit. I would say let's embrace a younger driver. Let's embrace that younger driver. Let's embrace the younger generation. Let's get out in our schools, uh, open up your doors, let people come and see what you do in your trucking operation or whatever operation you have, rail, air or sea. You could bring young people to the industry. There's so many opportunities. And as I've had the opportunity to work with our local university here, and our young people really like to travel and they just want a good career. It's like pick the transportation industry and take a pinpoint and put it anywhere on the globe, anywhere. Where do you want to go? And you will find, logistics, you will find trucking, you will find air, sea, rail, and you will have a good career in the industry.
Is there a question that you'd like to tag along with that as well?
Yes, I think it also tags onto my conversation about bringing younger people to the industry. And I'd have to ask the question, why can't an 18-year-old drive a truck? If they're properly trained, they could.
That's a good question, and one that I'm certain our next guest is going to have a fun time trying to answer. Sherri, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.